Hey, ladies!
Hi.
Happy, wealthy, and worthy week. How you doing today?
Doing great. How are you?
Good, good. Hanging
Yeah.
in, doing all the things, but
All the things.
Understandable.
hanging in. Good
Yeah.
to see
Oh
you,
man.
ladies, today.
Seat of the pants some days.
Yeah, no, seriously. Yeah, for sure. So, but we made it. We made it, y'all.
You made it.
Um,
We're here.
so last week we had we talked about the difference between a difficult season and an actual like broken structure of your life, right? Like how do we navigate in our lives as highly ambitious, highly capable women? And so today we're taking it a little bit deeper in today's conversation because today we're acknowledging, right, that many high achieving women like us, right, already know when something is off, right?
Mhm.
You're pretty clear when you feel tired, when you're stretched thin, maybe, and you start to feel the weight of carrying just too much, right? But
Mhm.
oftentimes, what's missing is actually counting the cost, right? Or being
Mhm.
clear on the math, right? Like
Yeah.
not just the math as it relates to like salary or accolades or titles or praise, but the real cost, right? Like the cost to your body, your peace, your relationships, your health, your nervous system, right? Your joy, because one of the most dangerous places for a high impact woman to be in is when she's normalizing continuing to function at a high level while she's completely depleted.
Hmm.
And many times what we do is we convince ourselves, we tell ourselves it's just temporary, it's a hard season, I just gotta push through. When everything slows down, dot, right? Um, Meanwhile, your body is under extreme pressure. It's adapting
Mhm.
and changing to your the chronic stress that you're exposing it to. Your relationships are starting to slowly shift and adjust to your absence. Your life,
Mhm.
right, is adapting to you over functioning as a baseline, right? And so eventually you just stop asking like, can I do this? And you start asking, how much longer can I keep going like this? Right. So today we want you to, we want to invite you to reflect on what is this actually costing me, right? Because whether you call the thing a thing or not, it costs something, right? And so naming it, being able to call it out, being able to identify it is actually the first step in you actually being able to redesign it or change it.
Mhm.
So we want to have that conversation today, and invite y'all to think about this a little bit differently and offer up some ideas, some suggestions, some um, thoughts and reflections about what we've seen work in our own lives, but also what we've seen work in the lives of our clients. So let's get into it, ladies. Let's get into it. So again, last week we talked about the difference between it's just a hard season and the way that my life is set up is just not working. Right? Um, so let's start with Dr. J. When we think about the long-term effects, right? When the math ain't mathing, what
Mhm.
does that look like in our bodies with stress, over functioning, maybe emotional suppression and not like saying out loud, like, I don't love this. What happens in the body when we default to that?
Yeah, so I can say from, just mentally, it can be challenging to discern of and so I spoke about feelings a lot, like what we're actually feeling because we're in a constant state of just like over functioning, trying to get things done. And so a lot of the times we are performing actions, we're doing things, but we are not allowing the time to label like what is actually happening in our brains as we are over functioning and doing all the things. So from a physiologic perspective, right, when you are in a constant state of over functioning, right, you can it was so funny because I mean, case in point, I actually, to explain my point, I'll explain what I discussed with a patient recently. So she had a really busy week, and there are weeks in her work where she will have these busy weeks, and this was one of those weeks. And she said, this week, I just, felt so emotional. I just was really gravitating toward like sugary, fatty foods. And then she labeled herself as an emotional eater. And so, so I went down to things of like, okay, so what was your sleep looking like? She told me she had 4.5 hours of sleep. Okay, so it's recommended that we get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Okay, and so I was like, well, at 4.5 hours of sleep, do you know what's happening in your body? Well, your cravings are going up because your hunger hormone is going up, right? Your cortisol levels are also raised, which is impacting how insulin is working, right? And so this is what is happening to your body, physiologically. And it's not that you're an emotional eater, you are underslept, right?
Mm.
And so it's really important to understand these things. Sometimes we put labels on ourselves, and we may call ourselves, well, I'm an emotional eater, but really we are not giving our bodies the proper support, such as sleep, that is required. And just for the record, there's a difference between emotional hunger and physical hunger, right? And so emotional hunger, it tends to come on fast. It's like, ooh, I need this right now. Versus physical hunger, it may come in a little bit more gradually. So understanding what that is and even how it feels in your body, right? Like sometimes when you want that salty snack, right? But it's also important to think about, okay, well, where is this actually coming from? Am I wanting this because is there a thought that I am thinking that's causing me to crave this salty snack, or is it something that I'm seeking? Sometimes people go toward more comfort foods, right? Because there's something that needs to be soothed, right? And so understanding the difference between emotional and physical hunger is important. Also, when you think about physical hunger, it's important to think about, okay, well, have I really eaten today? Because, sometimes with this over functioning, right, we could skip all the meals, right? And then we're calling ourselves, oh, I'm an emotional eater, but you haven't ate all day, right? And so that's physical hunger. It's not that you're emotionally hungry, it's just that physically you have not been fed, right? And so it's understanding that okay, when we say these things to ourselves, recognize, okay, are we really giving our body the physiological support that it needs, like as we are going and doing all the things? I hope I answered your question.
No, you did. Thank you. So, okay, so what I captured from that, right? The long-term effects are that you may start to blame yourself, like believing that it's like a personal weakness of like, I'm just an emotional eater or I'm just being dramatic, whatever. But really, there's something happening in your body that is signaling that you are undernourished, that you actually need to fuel it with the right substance so that the body can continue to perform at this high level. Is that kind of
Absolutely, yes.
good? Okay, yes. So number one, then, ladies, listen, we want to be thoughtful and intentional about what we say about ourselves, being able to really get clear about whether it is I'm just personally weak and just need this chocolate bar, or I'm saying chocolate because that's my guilty. That's my guilty.
We all have our thing. Listen, we all have our thing.
Look, let me tell you. Oh my gosh, this is so funny. So, Mother's Day was this past week. And my son, they like did this card, right? And they talked about like their moms and described them. And so when they asked what my favorite snack was, Lovey put on the card chocolate and apples. I was like, he totally gets me.
That is so sweet.
Chocolate is totally my thing. but but no. And listen, chocolate is okay sometimes. sometimes, sometimes you need that. But we want to be thoughtful, cautious about what we say about ourselves and how we kind of can sometimes box ourselves in. And that does have a cost, because if it's mislabeled, then the solution that we're seeking is going to be completely amiss. So that's really, really critical. So, okay, so let's pass it to you, Jeannie. When we think about, the actual cost, counting the cost of staying inside things that just no longer are working for us, what happens to women when they continuously override their own need, their gut, right? That intuition that this exhaustion is not sustainable. But instead of changing the design, they just kind of double down and push forward. Like what happens emotionally, when we override ourselves?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can talk about this from so many so many angles here. I mean, the first word that comes to mind is self-abandonment, right? You are describing a high functioning distress from a woman who has created for herself the understanding that over functioning is the way to live, right? And that over functioning is just what it describes itself to be, right? There's an excessive responsibility. There is a deep control over the landscaping of our lives, right? And particularly when you're living something that you have decided is a part of what's expected of you versus what is true intuitive desire for you, there becomes an identity of that's built, several types of narratives that get built around that experience, right? And the narratives are things like, I've learned I'm going to be safe if I'm useful. So the productivity now has this framework, right, that I exist in. I'll be loved if I'm needed. So, and what need is I got to do all this stuff for people. I got to show up in all these ways for people. It's almost a kind of a transactional experience, right? Where every single equation of the transaction is that I am on this side of the imbalance, where I'm consistently giving more and being more. And I love to say this, you all know, being more than what is required of me.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll belong if I don't disrupt the system. So I've created this system now. It's been going on for, I mean, how many high functioning women have you talked to and they said, oh yeah, this has been the last 10 years.
Yeah, yeah,
Easy, like easy. It's been the last 10 years.
yeah.
That's how I've been showing up. I'm going to survive if I become who this life that I've chosen, that now doesn't even feel like a choice any longer. It doesn't even feel a part of my own desires. It feels like it's a part of a system that I noted could work for me. And then instead of, when it didn't, saying, scrap this shit,
Right,
toss it out, I
right.
kept on investing in it. I kept on being loyal to it. I kept on because my family or whomever else existed inside of it in a comfortable way. And so I've got to sacrifice for the rest of my life, essentially. And so it's no longer about what do I want. It becomes a part of it, what's expected of me, what's going to keep the peace, what needs to be done, and who is going to be the one who does it. It's going to be me, because I can't exist in a world where anyone else is disappointed. And so now it's identity, and this very functional,
Wow.
consistent performance rather than an expression of our own intuitive truths. It's a very difficult space to be in.
Woo, that's powerful. That's powerful. Wow. Okay. Now listen, I mean, you done dropped a lot in that, but I think empathize very deeply with that, like you said, like not wanting to make other people like uncomfortable because they've become accustomed to you being the one that just always shows up, the dependable one, the steady one, the stable one, right? And oftentimes there's so much like trepidation, right? About like, well, if I change my role in their life, then there's going to be these ripple effects that I'm going to then feel guilty about, like, and
Yeah.
it can be really hard to maneuver through that, especially on your own.
And it's also, there's a matter as well, one that I didn't mention, that's a harder one to talk about, right? It's the part of ego that says, you know what is like, and you both know this as extremely high functioning women, right?
Yeah.
We are so good at existing in that way because we decide and then we act. We decide and then we act. We decide and then we act. And
Yeah.
it all gets implemented and you get used to showing up in a certain way and being seen in a certain way as well. And if we have if we're arrogant, which we can be, right? We
Yeah.
think to ourselves like, well, that's who I've always been, and I've got to continue to be that. And
Yeah.
if the reputation around me changes, there is detriment in that. There is distress in that. Well, if I've always been the dependable one and now I'm not because I'm setting boundaries, having better emotional understanding of
Right.
myself, like showing up healthful, right? Mindful of who I am. If it not
Yeah.
it shifts, if it shifts, just if it shifts, the reason doesn't matter. People are going to see the shift and they're going to think certain things about me. And that hit to my reputation and who I've been harms me because I built something so good. I'm so capable of maintaining it. So there's, we got to talk about that part too. The part that's
Right.
like ego says, I don't want to let that go. I've always been that. I've
Good.
always been her. And I can do this, 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 and the third, and all the other stuff. And you can.
Ooh, that's
You can.
good.
But for
Oh,
how
Yeah.
that's
long?
good. Okay, Dr. J, what you got? I
Well,
see.
I was just saying, Jeannie, you mentioned the ripple effect, right? And so, with you deciding, okay, like I'm no longer going to be the dependable one or the steady one, I think also there's a fear of just like the instability that it will create, right? The thing is, we're already creating instability by always being the one, but then we fear what will happen if we are no longer that dependable one anymore and the instability that it will create, right? We'll have to deal with the aftermath of that, right?
Yeah.
And when you're so used to functioning in a certain way, right, it creates a level of certainty, like, oh, this is happening, I'm just gonna go handle it, I'm gonna just go handle it, I'm gonna go handle it, right? I'm
Right.
gonna handle it. But then when you decide, okay, or even question, what if what if I'm no longer that person? What is the aftermath? Do I want to deal with that? Because then I no longer have the certainty that I've created.
Right. Exactly right. No, you're exactly right. But what I have learned from experience, them jokers always find a way. Okay.
Every
Listen,
time.
that's
Every
it
time.
right there.
Yes, and that's the thing that I appreciate that you mentioned, Jay, right? Of like the ego, because it's like you have convinced yourself, right, that and maybe too, right, you're getting the confirmation from those around you that you are the solution, right? And so it's like, okay, I'm getting this reinforcement, this positive reinforcement that I am the one. And so I'm going to take that on. And like you said, Dr. J, like, well, what will happen if I get out of position? Then everything else is going to be up in the air. I'm not going to have any control. I'm not going to know what's going to happen. And it's like, when you do, I'm not going to lie to you, it's very, very scary. However, they always find another one that will
Yep.
be dependable, that will show up, that will send all the money, that will make all the excuses, that will continue to enable, right? Like if that is their nature, some people are naturally extractive and they don't even know it. They don't come with the heart or the intention to contribute or add value, right? They're coming to seek how they can be served, and that's their thing, right? But for people like us, and at least for somebody like me and my personality being highly, highly empathetic, it can be so difficult to show like your care, your genuine heart to care, but also create boundaries so that people don't exploit that.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that has been like my life lesson of like, because I used to think like, or not even think, I used to say, like, God, why did you make me like this? Like, I hate this. Like, I hate it because I feel like everybody else always benefits. And it was like, oh, he had to then teach me how to guard the soft heart that he gave me. Right. And so, like, once he kind of started me on that journey of like understanding how I can steward my generosity, how I can steward my kindness, how I can steward, my heart to serve other people and not allow for it to be exploited. That's my job, right? And it's a job only I can do. And so once I learned that, then I was like, okay, I don't have to be different than how he created me. I just actually need boundaries to make sure that I'm guarding it and I'm stewarding it with wisdom. Because for me, boundaries is what protects love. It allows for me to love me and love you at the same time. Right. And so without that, like you said, Dr. J, there's this imbalance that over time it compounds, and the cost is often resentment.
Yeah. Yeah. And just a fractured sense of self, right? I
Yeah.
loved I love when you have this like, this incredible, this exceptional ability to like bring it back to your own experiences. I think I still kind of push that away and go straight into, the professional. It's a part of my splitting, right? It's a part of that what gets produced in that overfunctioning, which is this split person where you have this functional self, which we as women can identify with so well. And let me speak to my own experience. I
Yeah.
identify with so extremely well, very easy. The functional self who's consistently performing, the functional self who's consistently achieving, anticipates problems, manages those problems before they can become big issues, who
Yes.
adapts and changes so quickly, who fixes things, absorbs, explains things ad nauseum at times so people know why I'm doing what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, and make sure they understand I'm not trying to hurt them. Right.
Right. Right.
And then
Right.
the other self, that other fragmented self that exists, that you just talk yourself out of, which is this buried self that is carrying so much grief, so much resentment, so much longing to have the safety and security that you have built for everybody else, and who at one point gets so angry and gets so loud you can't ignore it any longer, right?
Yeah.
And that's when you experience and understand this, that when you don't do the things, when you do set the boundaries, you see that they can do it on their own first, but then you've got to look at you and the fact that, oh, they did it on their own, but I still feel this like immense anxiety. I still feel this hyper alertness and this concern and worry about people's moods and needs, and the potential disappointment that they felt in me not showing up. And that's the part I'm talking about. Those are the parts that we have to address, because when you don't show up in those ways, when you don't subscribe and succumb to what you've built, it's no longer, and you don't have that reflection of your capabilities, you then have to look at yourself and why you created that world to begin with.
Mm,
Mm.
yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That makes me a little emotional.
You and I both. It just
You
kind
know?
of hit me in the heart. Just kind of
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
and that's
Gee.
what our women are. That's what our women are going through
Yeah.
when they're
And
deep in this process.
yeah, and then being able to forgive yourself
Mhm.
for why you
For
created,
why? Exactly.
Yeah.
right? Because
Yep.
it's like sometimes I look back on that and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't know. I didn't have the awareness. I didn't, have the insight. into myself, of like, to be able to like realize that, this thing that I built, it was built out of survival. But now I don't have to survive, right? And so it's like, so then I get the opportunity to recreate it, right? And to build something new, like you said, Jeannie, that's like an authentic reflection of my deepest desires and my truest intentions. And that is where we see women starting to flourish,
Yeah.
right? Because they find that kind of reckoning, and they're like, okay, I have the courage to still move forward, but move forward in my own way, in my own time, being true to what I desire. And I always liken it to like when people talk about like being nice versus kind.
Being kind.
Yeah, because it's like I think and even as women, we're conditioned and sent a million messages a day to be nice, and like, and oftentimes I feel like it just strips us of our agency, and our ability to be kind to ourselves, right? Understand that it is out of the abundance of being kind to ourselves that we can extend that to everybody else that's connected to us.
Yeah.
So,
I
yeah.
think,
Exactly.
yeah, I think it's also important to like take inventory of the women in our lives, especially as we're young girls, right? And I could say this for myself, right? Is just like, as a young girl, I saw women function a certain way, right? And that just becomes, it starts to become innate. Like, this is what I see. And
Yeah.
so I'm going to adopt this type of behavior, but you don't think about it until you get to a point, like for me, it was like, my 30s. And I was just like, what, how did I get here? Right. You reach this
Right.
point, like how, like what happened? Right. And then you have to, retrospectively, like, Jeannie and Dr. Tiana, you were saying, like retrospectively and see like, okay, how did this happen? Right. And then you come to a point where it's just like, oh, I could decide to live a certain way. Like I don't have to become and live out what I've seen all my life. I have the autonomy and I could decide to live differently, right? And so that gives you so much free range and freedom to be able to use your creativity in how you actually want to function in this world as a woman, right?
Yeah.
What type of relationship do you want to have with your career? What type of relationship do you have with other women? What type of relations do you want to have with men? Like all these different, like ways of how we interact, you get to decide, especially once you get to the point of like, how did I get here? You get to a point like, oh, okay, I don't have to do that. Right?
Right.
You get to a point, it's just like, oh, I don't have to be that if I don't want to. Like, I can
Yeah.
totally decide.
Yeah, totally. That's so true. That's
Yeah.
so true. And I feel like one of the things that actually makes me really excited though about that point that you just described, Dr. J, is that I feel like women are awakening to that younger and younger.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like when I think of like my mom's age group, it's like my mom was like, oh, well, I kind of started to come into that awareness like 40s, 50s, right? Like,
Yeah.
whereas I was like late 20s, early 30s. And, and my prayer is that my daughter will be teenagers. Okay. We gonna establish that another decade sooner.
Exactly.
Okay.
I love that.
That I have this autonomy, that I can be all of who God created me to be, and I don't have to succumb to society, culture, or any of that. Like I get to, like you said, Dr. J, be creative in how I exist and am interdependent within the world and with other women and all of the things. So listen, speaking of interdependence, okay, y'all, Wealthy and Worthy, we coming live, y'all, this August in Atlanta, August 21st to the 23rd. Our early bird tickets are still on sale, so you can grab those at 20% off. And make sure you bring a homegirl, bring your girls, because
Okay.
this is going to be such a sweet, sweet time. And we're ramping up for it, getting all the players in place. And so we're pretty excited about that. So we want y'all to come be in community with us. Let's develop some new strategies so that we can count the cost very honestly and earnestly, but also develop a strategy so that you can show up in the fullness of who you are and be apologetic about it. Like you deserve that level of support. So, all right, y'all. Okay, so the next question, right, is when we think about like the long-term effect, right? Like the kind of the arc of like having this misalignment of like doing this thing, feeling the pressure, feeling the incongruence, but not pausing to question it and just kind of pushing through, lying to ourselves. I'm just going to say what it is, lying to ourselves and saying it's temporary, or when things slow down, we'll do X, Y, Z. When we think about that, right? What does it cost? Like, Jeannie, let's kick it back to you.
Sure.
What role would you say fear plays in keeping women attached to these systems and functions that clearly they've outgrown?
Oh man. I mean, when we think about overfunctioning, we can identify it as usually being an adaptation to fear, right? It's a fear of conflict, fear of abandonment, fear of failure, maybe even for some people, a fear that they are going to either return to because they came from spaces of chaos in their family upbringings, right?
Okay.
Or they're going to ascend into chaos, either one.
Yeah.
But certainly a fear of disappointment and of the pull that is some of women's warped sense of self and sense of role based on societal understandings, right? Like if I am not needed, I am nothing, right?
Mhm.
So I mean, this is all generated through fear. The overfunctioning person, they appear so strong, so organized, so selfless, but the behavior is generally a way to avoid helplessness. It's a way to avoid grief. It's a way to avoid vulnerability. You know, um,
Hmm.
Overfunctioning patterns as a whole, are ways oftentimes that people manage anxiety. I know specifically for myself that it is a major means to manage anxiety, right? If I can put all of this kind of angsty jumping out of my skin energy into something else, if I can channel it somehow, then I find in myself a better way of managing. And that's specifically learned from the family dynamic that I lived inside of, right? I need to anticipate what the needs are going to be, anticipate what could go wrong, and make sure that I prepare for that so it doesn't go wrong. Small example. My mom used to always forget to sign permission slips for me to go on, these
Yeah.
kind of on teacher
Yeah.
chaperone situations, right? You
Yeah.
had to get a permission slip signed. And she would
Okay.
be so tired because she worked so much. I would put them on our desk. I would leave them like, I would always ask the teacher, can I have the permission slip like a week in advance? Can I have it earlier so that I can get it to my mom right away? And I don't know what would happen, but she would just consistently forget to sign these permission slips.
Okay.
And it would become so upsetting and distressing for me, but I would be afraid to ask her because I didn't want her to get upset. I didn't want her to think that I thought she was irresponsible. So I learned to adapt my mother's signature so that I could sign those permission slips myself. Like as a child, I'm younger than I'd say 9 years old. I was doing this, anticipating that something was going to go wrong, anticipating that I was going to receive a huge consequence for it, that my mom was going to be perceived a certain way within my school. And it shifted how I showed up over a
Mm.
permission slip.
Wow. That's fascinating.
Mhm.
That is, what's super interesting though, that now that you describe that, it literally made a memory come to my mind of being the eldest of 5 siblings. And I literally had the exact same experience. So what I would do as mother hen, my mom, she worked 2 jobs. She worked in corporate, and then in the evenings she ran a salon. And so I would literally, we had this bar in our kitchen. And so I would gather all the permission slips for all 5 of us, and I would line them up on the bar so that when my mom came home at night, because everybody was in bed already, she could just roll down the list and sign all of the papers. And then in the morning, it was my job to put them in the backpacks and make sure, they got back to school. But, and I was 12, 11, and even thinking about that, I never connected that in the way that you just described of not wanting people at school to think that my mom was, busy or distracted or not involved or not present, and it was like trying to, like you said, like anticipate the needs and being like, I'm going to help solve this and make sure that things stay smooth. Like, that is wild.
And the dynamic just continued, I did doing the taxes, making sure my mom's taxes were done so that I could get my FAFSA, like so many things. There's this great loss of, you have a certain degree of autonomy. What's mine to carry? What belongs to me? And from a very early age, you start taking on the things that don't. And then you think, oh, I'm just going to wake up and I'm going to understand just how to carry what's mine. But you don't. No. You have to literally unlearn carrying everything for everyone else because it's how you function for so long.
Yep. And I will say that actually what therapy did for me, right? Therapy helped me get very clear about what was mine and what was not mine. And once I got clear about that, it actually made everything else easier, right? It made, not seamless and not painless, but it made it much easier because then I understood like, oh, that's not, my old employers would say, that's not in my wheelhouse, right? Like,
it's on my scope.
In the professional space, that's not in my wheelhouse, right? And it helped me to, with my type A personality, it helped me to kind of just delineate very clearly, like, okay, this is my bucket, that's their bucket, and what they do with their bucket ain't none of my business. Like that is how that happened. But to your point, it did not magically happen. It took deep awareness, it took courage, and then it took practice, to consistently be like, okay, nope, I'm giving that back to you. Nope, that doesn't belong to me. Nope, I'm going to let you own that. And I feel like in that practice, the space that benefited the absolute most is in my marriage.
Yeah.
Because I'm not responsible for anything. My husband, like it's literally like we are two individuals that have decided to merge our lives and do life together. But I see so often in my clients and just in relationships in general that so many women can become so enmeshed that they take on their husband's things, and their husbands almost become like another child.
Yes.
And they don't even realize it. Like I've heard some women say it, right? Like, oh, I have 4 kids, I really have 3, but I have a 4th one or something like that. Like they joke about it, which I think is just diabolical. Yeah. Yes. But so many women that I see and observe where they're not even aware of that dynamic, right? That they are, like you said before, like over functioning and being more than the moment requires. And they're in a lot of cases encroaching on their partner or their husband's autonomy, agency, whatever, because they fear, I think maybe as Dr. J mentioned, like the unknown, or maybe feeling like they don't have control over a specific outcome or whatever, right?
No,
like
absolutely.
Small stuff like cleaning, right? Like, I know Tiana's not here today, but we for years would have this conversation about cleaning. Jay, I'm not lying.
I know you're not.
Like, I'm in the same boat, right? I'm in that boat right now.
She just,
It was just such a round and round and round and round and round conversation for years, you guys. Like we did marriage retreats for 5 years. and it would always be on the docket. And like, I could not for the life of me figure out what is the problem. Hire a cleaner. Like,
Right.
why
Let
are
it
we
go.
having this conversation? You know, like, and it was so like, and to Lana, you know, I give her so much credit because she eventually was like, you know what? She's like, I am making this bigger than it needs to be.
Yes.
And he does not have to get down on his knees and be scrubbing toilets because that's my preference, right? Like she had to kind of detach from the outcome of like how it got done, of just accepting it needs to get done.
Right.
And I'm going to put that in his wheelhouse for him to figure out how it needs to get done. And his response was, make it a line item in the budget because we're going to hire somebody.
Because we're hiring someone. Yes. And she had to contend with, and she can speak this maybe, you know, next, but she had to contend with what was left once that happened. What was she, because there was a part of her functionally, there was a part of her worth-wise that was like, if he's not doing it, if he's not showing up the way I would like him to, that is that speaks to my own worth, that speaks to how I'm needed in my family structure. And I'm giving into that. I'm giving into that consistently. And it's Lynn inside of one of our chats today has said, you know, as we're talking about all of this and how this all culminates and how we're like dealing with the grief and the resentment and other feelings that come up when we're setting our boundaries and showing up differently, showing up more courageously, as you said, with helps of therapists, etc., licensed therapists, and she says we have to learn to let go of the guilt as well. We have to learn to let go of the guilt, and this is huge, broad spectrum of emotions that happen inside of these experiences that we're all looking and trying to learn how to manage, right? Yeah. And just because you do, in choosing something different, in choosing something that is more aligned, right, to like the health of your marriage and to showing up with that individual self in mind, with a protective nature over your own autonomy, when you're seeing what the consequences of that are, because they're not always peaceful. Yeah. Sometimes they come with like a great amount of distress, pushback from your partner, pushback from your family. And they come with you just sitting and watching what it does to you when you leave them alone. I think people forget this part all the time. What you experience when you actually sit back and you let people do it on their own, and they're struggling and they're not at peace and they're all over, when you've gotten so used to managing their emotions and you're watching them inside of that, what you are experiencing, which is the guilt, which is the harm, which is this was my job for so long, I'm not doing my job. How do I settle in that, right? Because you don't get to not see sometimes the aftermath of new choices. Takes courage to stare that stuff in the face. To watch somebody drown in front of you and you gotta wait until they swim. You're like, are they gonna swim? They're not swimming, they're still not swimming. I don't understand. Like, why are they not swimming?
Yeah. It's kind of like I had a mentor years ago talk about it, like in terms of like what you just said, Jeannie, like of somebody like drowning. And like how when they're flailing in the water, like that's not the time that you go to save them. like you literally have to wait until they stop flailing and fighting, because if you jump in then you're going to kill both of you. Like both of you will die, right? And like I feel like that happens so much in our practical interactions and relationships. And it's like we have to be careful and use discernment to recognize like when have they stopped flailing and when is it time for me to actually activate my compassion and show up to help, you know, and get them to a place where they can just keep swimming again, right? Like sometimes we intervene prematurely and then both people end up wounded. And it's just, there's no win in that situation. And so it's like, we have to, again, count the cost of intervening, like you said, Jeannie, like, and then watching from a distance of like, you know, and I feel like I feel like that shows up so much more for me now that I'm a parent. You know, watching my son, do things and like really, it is literally something that's top of our mind all the time of
Mhm.
letting him do the thing, even if it's hard, even if he's struggling through it, right? Because
Mhm.
what I know for sure is I don't want to strip him of his
Mhm.
confidence. I don't want to
Mhm.
strip him of his self-belief,
Yeah.
right? And his ability to trust himself, And so it's like I don't want to strip his self-esteem so that I can build mine,
Right.
right? So that is something that I'm always like, I mean, it's always top of my mind when I see my son doing something, and like my husband, it's interesting because he's much less like,
Mhm.
he's in it with me, but he's not as, like, firm on it as me. So,
Mhm.
like, we'll be at a park or something, and Lovey will be, climbing something. He's
Mhm.
3, right?
Yeah.
That's what they do.
What they do.
And my husband, I'll be, like, 100 feet back. Like, I'm like,
Mhm.
"Alright, do it, do the thing. Like, I'm
Mhm.
here if you are." And my husband is like, "Are you crazy?" He's like my husband's, like, up next to this thing at the playground. He's, like, watching like a hawk. He's, like, creeping up close if he thinks it's gonna topple, and it's so funny to watch, those dynamics because I thought my husband, being a man's man would be like, "Oh, he's gonna do it,"
Got this.
but he has worked so much on his, like, emotional intelligence and
Mhm.
being allowing my son to be more emotional and expressive, and so he is, like, almost opposite me, and I'll be like, "Let him do it, you gotta let him
To
do it."
go. No, it's true. It's such a
It
fight.
translates, into so many
Yeah.
other areas of our lives when we
Yeah.
practice those
Yeah.
things, so.
Yeah. I've had the lately the deepest prayer I've been putting in speaking and
Mhm.
repeating in my heart is one where I don't try to be for my son what I needed in a parent, that I just show up
Mm.
clear and perceptive and intuitive about what he
What
tells me he needs.
Oh, that's amazing.
And so
Yeah,
I'm focused on like I gotta get it right
yeah.
now so that I know the difference. So
Yeah.
that's what I
Oh, that's
show up for him
good.
as. Not what I need. I
That's
don't want to be what
good.
I needed. I want to be what he needs of me.
That is so good. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a
Pretty good.
beautiful prayer.
Mhm.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Wow. Okay. Oh man, that's so good. Okay. Okay, y'all. Look, we already at time. Okay,
Oh
so
gosh,
okay,
what
we
fast.
gonna we gonna hit the round robin. All right.
Okay.
So okay. So at some point, right, as women are managing these things, carrying these heavy things, recognizing that they've outgrown the current structure of their lives, of maybe their relationships, maybe of their careers, maybe their businesses, right? We're constantly evolving as people. As long as we're living, we're constantly growing and evolving. And so when the woman enters that space where she's like, what is this really costing me? Because I know I can't keep managing this like this, right?
Mhm.
What would you guys say is the most important thing for her to understand about the real cost of staying inside of something that no
Mhm.
longer serves them?
Ooh, that's a good
You want
question.
to take this first, Dr. J? Or you want me to take it on first?
You could take it. Don't
I
think.
can't.
What
I
do what do
think,
you need to remember? What do you need to remember of the
yeah,
real cost of staying in something that it no longer serves you?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the real cost is at some point the recognition that it goes beyond just exhaustion. It trickles into abandoning self and your understanding about what your true desires are. Right? I
Mm,
think she thinks consistently that all that's going to happen with this is, I'm gonna spend a lot of time and I'm going to spend a lot of energy on all of this. But these patterns overall, what they create are these alliances, this allegiance to ignoring your heart's desires and
mhm,
consistently choosing obligatory work and obligatory ways of showing up, and that I mean that's the thief of creativity. It's the thief of, again, like we talked about, that intuitive desire of one's true self. And so the deepest psychological injury, yeah, it's not simply exhaustion, it's estrangement from self.
Wow.
That's really good.
God. I, I, I love the way that you just so eloquently explained that, because what it made me, what came up for me immediately when you said, you know, the suppression of your deepest desires, and the Lord literally just dropped in my spirit that desire is divine, and it means of the Father. And when we have a desire in our heart and we ignore it and we override it and we pretend like it's not there, the Bible tells us that hope deferred makes the heart grow sick,
Yes. Yes.
right? And so it's like it's not about, can I be tired, or can I take a nap, or can I do some retail therapy to push through this? It's about my light being dim, because, and my heart growing sick, because I am continuously deferring the hope, the dreams, the desires, the true preferences of my heart. And like you said, Jeannie, like when we abandon ourselves, it's like, what is all of it for? You know, what is all of it for? Like, so it's that returning, right? I say that often. Like, cancer for me was an unexpected invitation for me to return to myself, and to stop being everything for everybody else and nothing to myself.
That's
And
it.
I don't, and I do this work because I don't want you to be like me. I don't want you to wait until a diagnosis to realize that you are living in conditions that are not sustainable, that you are over functioning, you are over capacity, your body is screaming for rest, for ease. I want you to see that there's nothing wrong with your ambition, but we have to use wisdom and we have to count the cost and be honest about what that looks like, so that we can build lives that are authentic to who we really are and what we really want. So that is the why, behind all of it, all of it. So let's wrap it up with you, Dr. J. What do you have? What
Yeah.
do you want them to understand and remember about staying someplace that they know they've outgrown?
Yeah. So I think it's important to remember that when you're at that place, is that it is creating a distinction between who you are right now versus who you can become. And when we're in that place, like, oh, I don't know if I could keep on going. Sometimes it's easy just think about just that, right? Like that, like you just in that place, like, oh, I don't think I can move much longer, but you don't think about the other side, right? The difference of like who we can actually become, right? And so recognizing that, okay, but there's this other way, right? This is not the only way, because when we're in that place where we think it's the only way, we stay there. It's very easy to stay there, right? And just keep on ruminating, like, okay, this is not working for me. This is not working for me. This is not working for me. But it's like, but what if? Right. And so understanding that there is a distinction, you're not just solely in that place, but recognize there's also a distinction of where you are right now versus who you can become.
I love that. I love that. Listen, it's never, as my mom would always tell me growing up, it's never too late to change your mind.
Never too late.
If you're, going down the path and you feel like you've already committed so much, or you've already invested so much, and you feel like, you don't want to lose what you've already invested, like, still never too late to change your mind. And maybe something was working, and maybe now you realize, oh, it's not working for me anymore,
Yeah.
or I don't love that anymore, right?
Mhm.
And that's okay.
It's
That's
okay.
okay. And honestly, it should happen.
Mhm.
As you continue to grow and evolve and learn more about yourself and about this life, your preferences and what works for you should be changing and evolving as well. So there's nothing wrong with it at all. The only thing that makes it harder is when you deny the truth. Whenever you resist the truth, you suffer. So we want y'all to be very clear, having rounded out the conversation today, we want y'all to take from this discussion, right, that calculating and being very clear about the cost is not intended to be about fear or shame, even,
Right.
right? It was intended to be about honesty, because
Mhm.
we know from our own experiences, from the women that we work with, that women are continuing to tolerate things that are quietly costing them their health, their peace, their relationships, their capacity, and ultimately the quality of life that they deserve and that they've worked so hard to build. And it's not because you're weak. It's largely based on our conversation today because you learned and your body is creative at coming up with ways to survive.
Mhm.
And we know that once you hit that level, it's no longer about survival because you don't have to survive anymore, right? And so it then becomes, is this the life that I actually want to keep building?
Yeah.
Am I happy about these things?
Mhm.
What do I need to assess and adjust about this so that I feel like I'm living in true alignment with what I really want and my deepest desires, right? So again, that is why Wealthy and Worthy exist. We are not
Mhm.
here just to be chatting, okay? It's not created to be a room where you just collect more information. This is a space where you can pause, step back, tell the truth about what these things are really costing you, and then begin to redesign from a place of alignment, strength, support, and not survival. So, with that in mind, we hope to see y'all this
We
August
do.
in Atlanta for our Wealthy Mastermind from August 21st to the 23rd, because we know that you cannot heal a structural problem by becoming better at tolerating it.
Mhm.
Got to redesign that thing. So we'll see y'all in Atlanta, and we will see y'all next week, same place, same time. Bye.
Hi.